Ninja Online, guys, welcome back to Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishments. This is chapter 19, and when we last left off, I don't really remember what we were doing. It's only been like a day, if that. And yeah, no, I completely forgot, which is horrible. It's going to be bad for our case, but I do kind of remember the case a little bit here. So I'm sure once we get into it a little bit, I'll kind of remember where we left off. I remember doing an experiment. I think we found out the method of execution in terms of how the plants work together. So now we're going to head back to Kew Gardens and see if anyone knows anything else. This is a harder case, definitely. I don't think the syndicate did it. There's just not enough motive, really. They wanted their plants back, not to kill the poor guy. It's looking highly possible that Hamish did this. But of course, we need to figure some stuff out before we can blame him. Before Dunn's death, can you tell me what happened?
Can you tell me if you saw Mr. Montague Dunn on the day of his death?
Yes, of course. I met him, and we went to see Albert, his son, at around 9:30. He appeared quite calm.
What was your activity at that morning?
What were you doing on the morning of the accident?
After paying multiple visits to Albert, I had a little talk with Miss White. Then I returned to my desk to complete some paperwork. Suddenly I observed that Mr. Dunn was not feeling well, so I ran immediately to fetch Albert. I clearly remember that it was around 10:30, for I was late that morning.
Thank you, Mr. Hamish. We shall continue our investigation.
So he was with Albert at 9:30, and he witnessed the death at 10:30. I have a feeling I'm going to have to remember these times. What were you doing the day of Dunn's death?
Your father's death does seem highly suspicious. What were your movements here on that day?
Suspicious? Well, I was working in the seed house, taking care of Lysa something, or Lear Pontus, or... No, wait. These Latin names. And I spent so many hours trying to memorize them.
Did you see your father that day?
Yes. He came here with Mr. Hamish for his weekly visit. There was nothing unusual about that.
And then?
Nothing. They stepped out to the backyard. It was perhaps 20 minutes before 10 o'clock. Then about 10 minutes later, I saw my father heading for the dry tropics room while Mr. Hamish returned here.
What about other people's activity?
And Mr. Hamish and Miss White? What were they both doing that morning?
Mr. Hamish visited me a couple of times. I also saw him returning from talking with Miss White, and that was at 10 minutes past 10. But then he ran back here to me to tell me that my father was feeling unwell. We hurried across to the water lily room, and I found my father lying dead on the floor. Oh, my God.
Thank you, young man. We shall see you again soon.
So far, Hamish's and Albert's stories kind of collaborate for each other there. The timing seems right. The only window that really sees in there is, in fact, Hamish's window. Can you tell me about the day of the death?
Can you tell me what Mr. Dunn was doing upon the day of his death?
I can, but there is nothing very special to say. I was in the laboratory when I saw Mr. Dunn heading towards me. Tuesday is the day of his weekly visit. It was supposed to be at 9, but he was 10 minutes late, as usual.
And then?
Well, he came in to say good morning. Then I saw him spend 2 or 3 minutes by the plants outside the laboratory. After that, he ran out in the direction of the nursery, where Mr. Hamish was working. He was always in a rush during the inspection, you see. I would pity anyone who stood in his way.
What about the time of death?
And that was the last time you saw him?
Yes. I stayed in the laboratory until 20 minutes to 11, when I heard the cries of Albert and Mr. Hamish from the large glass house. I joined them as soon as I could, for I knew that something must be very wrong.
What exactly were you doing in the laboratory?
I was recording an experiment for my thesis. I only stopped my work once when Mr. Hamish visited me briefly around 10 o'clock.
Do you have your records?
You say you were recording an experiment when the tragedy occurred. Might I listen to the roll?
Certainly. Please do. You will find it in the laboratory. It is number 320.
Thank you, miss.
Sometime later.
Everyone has gone, Holmes. The way is clear.
Definitely would have had to inhale the spores first. Then he tried escaping the room. Which means someone definitely came through here and cleaned that up. Well, I mean, obviously they cleaned it up, but...
When Montague Dunn was standing close by the plants, the caterpillars were released and caused the deadly spores to activate. Panicking, and likely already half asphyxiated, Montague Dunn started back and knocked over the bust. He rushed to the door, but it was locked. He had to force it open with his shoulder. We already know the outcome. Montague Dunn collapsed and died not far from the pool. Well, it is time to perform our experiment on the ventilation system. The caterpillars could only fall from the ventilation duct. Our caterpillars are in place. I'll activate the ventilation system so that they fall down. Watson, stay here and observe.
All right, Holmes.
Am I supposed to, like... Yeah, I'm supposed to follow and see where it goes. Okay. I mean, I already know where it goes, but you shall follow.
The power is on. The engine cannot be started whilst the transmission is active. The engine has started. The ventilation system is working.
Okay. Let's backtrack just to see.
Excellent. This ventilation fan is working. Let us see if I can activate the other one.
It's a good thing I backtracked then, huh? And there we go. Stuck in the corner there for a second. The other one was in here.
Perfect. Now I just need to find Watson to check the result.
It works perfectly, Holmes. Bravo. Now, if you could just help me to get rid of these caterpillars.
Perfect. Now we know how the murder of Montague Dunn was carried out, by activating both Albert's and Mr. Hamish's fans.
But only from Mr. Hamish's workplace would it be possible to see when Montague Dunn entered the Colonial Collection Room.
This is true. Hamish even said that he had witnessed odd. Hamish even said, though, that he had witnessed
Let's go to Scotland Yard.
that he'd witnessed Dunn kind of flailing about and stuff. I can't just leave from here, can I? I think I can. Scotland Yard. I'm gonna walk all the way up to the exit. No pleb. I am pretty convinced that Hamish is the one who did all this anyways. It's hard to say that it wasn't.
Inspector, I believe that Martin Hamish is guilty of the murder of Montague Dunn.
Aha! I knew it. I'll send the lads around to arrest him.
Very good. I shall wait to hear from you.
Sometime later, of course.
Inspector, I came here as quickly as I could.
Martin Hamish is in the large glass house. There's no need to hurry.
He's dead. You think it was suicide then? Definitely.
Holmes, my God!
Yes, we found him like that.
Our messing around with the ventilation system didn't go unnoticed. Mr. Hamish realized that we knew.
Inspector, could you arrange the body, please? I should like to examine it. The mark around the neck is very visible. He died instantly.
So he severed his neck.
Holmes, his left shoe is unique. This anomaly is often a characteristic of...
A club foot. Bravo, Watson. That is the key element of this case.
Well, it's not going to help me right now because it has nothing to do with anything else. Life is becoming a living hell. I find it unbearable. Dunn deserved to die, but I cannot forgive myself for having his blood upon my hands. We Hamishes seem to have always fallen victim to our circumstance, and I find myself to be no exception. I must atone, and I shall do so here and now. Farewell.
Something about this rings very oddly.
Why do you say that, Mr. Holmes?
Why? Because of Mr. Hamish's club foot. Oh, I deserve to be kicked from here to Charing Cross. I should have noticed it.
But, Mr. Holmes, I can't see why.
No, I don't suppose you do. You must recall that Mr. Dunn was locked inside the Colonial Collection Room by the murderer. If it was Mr. Hamish, he would have had to run up to his workplace to trigger the fan situated above it, taking into consideration the condition of his foot.
Well, it is still possible.
Perhaps, but it is rather strange that such a person as Mr. Hamish decided to base his plan on the speed of his gait.
You mean to say that somebody helped him?
So the suicide is questionable?
Correct. Mr. Hamish accuses only himself in his letter, and so the investigation stops.
Possibly an accomplice, then? That idea had not occurred to me, Mr. Holmes.
I have another idea, Inspector. Thanks to the testimony that we have collected, we are able to rebuild the events as they took place that day.
With a timeline, such as we did in the Jack the Ripper case.
Precisely.
The map at the entrance of Kew Gardens should help us with our timeline.
Let us analyze the facts and statements
Oh, God.
so that we may recreate the events of that morning.
So Martin Hamish and Montague Dunn went to meet Albert in the Seed House at around 9:30. So Martin Hamish and Montague Dunn went to meet Albert in the Seed House at around 9:30. It was at around it was around 20 minutes to 10 when Hamish and Montague Dunn went out to the backyard. After 10 minutes, Dunn recommenced his inspection and entered the dry tropics room. Hamish returned to the Seed House. Martin Hamish had a conversation with Miss White at 10 o'clock. Miss White was in the laboratory until 10:40 when she saw Hamish and Albert in the water lily greenhouse and joined them there. Hamish ran to Albert as soon as he observed the Montague death. Montague Dunn was unwell, which was at around 10:30. Albert was in the Seed House the entire morning. He observed Hamish return from visiting Miss White at 10 minutes past 10.
Let us summarize. Montague Dunn was poisoned inside the Colonial Collection Room. He forced open the door, which means that someone locked him inside there at 10:20. Martin Hamish was last seen at 10:10. This means that he has approximately 10 minutes to lock the door of the Colonial Collection Room. Given that he was club-footed, it is doubtful. Albert also has 10 minutes to lock the door of the Colonial Collection Room, which is quite enough time. Miss White was last seen at 10 o'clock, which means that she had approximately 20 minutes to lock the door. More than enough time. Perfect, Watson. Now, let us ascertain who assisted Martin Hamish in killing Montague Dunn.
Well, I would say that he lacks experience. It's kind of apparent. White, however, does have the experience. I'm not confident in that, though.
Let us summarize. Montague Dunn, Martin Albert, Miss White. Perfect, Watson.
Well, she had 20 minutes to go from here to there. She said that,
Here it is.
she said that she was in here recording.
These plants, classified as shrubs or grasses, have adapted to their arid environment due to a system of underground roots.
This recording seems very long. It is unnecessary to listen to all of it. Miss White was in the laboratory, as she told us.
Well, then that's it right there. It would have had to be, because if this is as long as he says it is. Yeah. That was the missing piece right there. That just cracked the case. And it's a good thing I remembered that too, because you know what? I was going to say Miss White because she has 20 minutes to go about and do whatever. But if that's lengthy and she couldn't have possibly left there, then the only other person is obviously Albert. He's definitely an accomplice. I'm confident in that. There's definitely... I didn't even think about it prior to, until the whole clubfoot thing came up. But even past that, I forgot the door was locked. So, completely right. Someone would have had to lock the door and then run and start the ventilation system, hit both the switches. You know, so it only makes sense that someone else was there.
What happened, Inspector?
It's all over now, lad. There is no use denying it. We know that you murdered your father. Patricide by plant poisoning. Very alliterative.
What? You're mad. I didn't do it. I don't know anything about botany. No!
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Damn. He couldn't have done it by himself. There's no way. Yo, if I find out he did it by himself, Jesus. The syndicate must have helped then. Fuck. Yep. I'm an idiot. That has to be what it is. I'm going to look at it right now, just to see. No, I was wrong. Apparently White is an accomplice. Damn. Well, we can't get them all right. We definitely fucked that one up. Damn. People solved the case the same way, 3%. I thought we definitely had it there. A half moonwalk.
Where are you going, Holmes? Have you been invited somewhere?
We have been invited, Watson,
We have. Where to?
to the Baker Street Irregulars' annual dinner. They sent us an invitation. It is on the